This is the Unpacking It podcast, and I am excited to be joined once again by Super Bowl winner and ESPN analyst Mark Herzlich. Man, it's great to have you back on the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on. It's one of my favorites, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, so we talked last April, and that was early in on the pandemic and everything. So how about we'll start there, and then we'll go a bunch of football directions and faith directions. But just as far as kind of this, as you reflect back on this last year, what are some things that have bubbled up for you just as you've processed and experienced all that we've been through?
Gosh, yeah, you think about kind of the major impactful things, right? Obviously there's this whole concept of, well, we need to learn how to be self-sufficient, and then you get self-sufficient, and then you think, oh, well, now it's time to have community, but where is the community, and what type of community can we have? And I think it became the hardest with our church community, quite honestly, because we can't see them in person. We can't do life with them, and I think that's one of the things that's so great about being a Christian is that you can do life like with your community. And so that's been something that's been challenging. It's been a challenge, but we've been able to kind of do some of that through PAO, Professional Athletes Outreach. Just we have a good network of other professional athletes who are Christians across the country. We've been able to stay in touch with them. But I think the biggest thing when you just look at everything that's going on and what I've done for myself is that it was a time to really look at my own self and say, what do I need to change? What do I need to get better at? What kind of time do I need to take to pour into myself? And it allowed me to do some of that, which was great.
Any kind of maybe revelations that you'd be willing to share, or big takeaways that might even be an encouragement to somebody listening?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing is that although I am a Christian, I was not spending anywhere near enough amount of time with God and with Jesus and with my with praying and reading my Bible and living out the Christian life. And I felt like I would get just kind of wrapped up in life and doing different things. So that was one thing I needed to address. And part of addressing that was just creating time. I currently have a 3-month-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old son.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of dadding, right? Like dadding is a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But in order to get some time with God as well, I just needed to wake up earlier, right? And that's become, right now, as we were recording this, we are currently in the Lent season. And that was my big thing for Lent, rather than giving something up that I can just easily come back to later. It was like, all right, I'm going to sacrifice my sleep a little bit. I'm going to wake up earlier, wake up at 5, do my Bible study, do my readings, then go and work out, and then I'm done by 7 when my kids wake up. So that's kind of been my process, and it's been great. It's crazy how much better I feel during the day when I start with the right way.
Amen. So Mark, the same thing happened for me. I was getting frustrated. I have a 18-month-old daughter, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just not having the quality time with the Lord. I was still reading and trying to fit it in, with all the craziness of life. And then I said, you know what? I just got to start getting up early. And I'm not an early guy.
No, me neither. At all.
I like watching games. I like to stay up to the last minute and sleep in till the last minute. And at the beginning of the year, made the switch to getting up earlier. And it truly is a game changer. It sets the whole tone for the day. And you always know, all right, that's the most important thing. And that's taken care of in the morning. It doesn't mean you leave God there in the morning. You go with him, right, empowered and just, much more fully alive than just trying to, fit it in during the day. So I'm right there with you. And it does take some discipline to switch the schedule. But man, it's so valuable. So.
And there's something to be said, right? You have a young kid as well. There's something to be said about being fully awake by the time they wake up.
Yes.
Right? Like, aren't you just able to be a better dad when you're already fully awake and have already gotten like a cup of coffee or whatever it is that gets you going in the morning? I totally feel it, right? When I sleep in and we wake up at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am bad dad right now.
Well, yeah, because I make way more mistakes with the diapers, or I'm doing
Oh yeah.
stuff when I haven't had that time in the morning. Because yeah, for the long stretch there, I would just wake up whenever Maddie would wake up, and so I'm up now. I got to get up because she's up, and to now switch that to where I'm up before it's been a game changer for the last month and a half for me. So. I'm right there with you. I think I probably missed a couple of days and staying up late for the Super Bowl and all that, but yeah,
You're forgiven. You'll be forgiven.
that's it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of reading, we're looking at you for those that can watch on video. You got all these books behind you. So are these books that you've actually read? I mean, that's quite the library you got.
Yeah, we got the whole shelf going. A lot of them are ones that I've read. We got, it's funny how the bookshelf, you take one out and then it just kind of piles up on top of the other ones. So, but it's funny. Let me see if I can do this with my fingers. So over here, it's like a bunch of like photo albums for when I was younger, and then like up here, there's like magazines and memories. But like this right here, this whole shelf is all like Christian faith books and stuff. So
nice.
That's where we dive into. And then we have these are my textbooks from college, business law, all that stuff up there. So like if I ever need to get back into learning how to do calculus or trigonometry or sociology, I got it there just in case. It hasn't happened yet in the past 12 years, but just in case it's there.
Good for you, man. Because I was a broadcast major, so we didn't really have a lot of books, and so I would always rent them or borrow them or whatever, and I would put them in the back of my trunk to start the semester, and I would rarely take them out, and then they'd be there at the end of the semester to return them. So I don't have any of them. So I give you credit. You still got your textbook.
I mean, even now, I mean, I'm sure college kids are listening to this. They don't barely even have textbooks anymore, right? Everything's digital. They got it all on their computers, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I remember getting some of those textbooks that were 10 years old, and the information was like, you got to be kidding me. From the broadcasting standpoint. Well, so as a reader, what is your kind of strategy? Like, because I read a lot of Christian books as well. I'm actually reading a book by Billy Graham right now, which is awesome. But do you read kind of one at a time? Do you read multiple books at once? What's your strategy?
So it's funny. My wife is really good at reading multiple books at once, and then like relating them all together and having notes and everything like that. Me, I'm just like, I need to read one book at a time. I need to highlight it, go through it. And then like on a second pass is when I can really like study it. And then there's certain books, like a Mere Christianity, right? You just can't just like breeze through it because you find yourself like, oh my gosh, I just missed so much stuff. So, but the real in-depth books like that, you'll kind of sit down and study, but I'm definitely one book at a time. I take, kind of start in like paths, right? Where I'm big into like reading books on parenting now, right? Parenting and how Christian, fathers should father, and how to raise boys, how to raise girls. So like right now that I'm like on a momentum building reading of parenting. And then sometimes it's relationships, when it kind of is with life ebbs and flows. When my marriage is feeling great, maybe a little bit less reading on the marriage side. When it feels like it needs some work, maybe a little bit more reading over there. So yeah, and then I got to admit, like summers, sometimes I just need like a beach read. Get like a James Patterson or a John Grisham and just hit the beach and be like, look, I just need to be basically watching a movie in my brain right now.
There you go. No, I love it. That's awesome because I'm a reader, and really became a reader probably in college, a little bit after college, and it's just one of my favorite things to do. It's the most relaxing thing for me. And so my wife gives me a hard time because I like your library. She doesn't like that I keep all my books, but I like to keep them because I want to refer back to them, and I'm not a big digital reader either. I like to hold the hard copy.
Yeah, it's definitely preference, but there's something different about like highlighting on actual paper rather than scanning your finger across. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to read a book and not have a highlighter or a pen in my hand either. Like, you need to have something to mark it up. And I feel like, when you do that, you can't get rid of it either because it's now has become a notebook. It becomes all, where your reference point, all your points of knowledge. So you can't throw them away. But we obviously have way too many books for that bookshelf. So that's just we will need to stack on top.
No, I love it. That's awesome. Because I've got old magazines as well. So I got a lot of the stuff. That's for sure.
And it's so funny too. Like those are the things my wife tells me to get rid of. She's like, really? Like you need your Glory Days magazine. Like you need the game program for the bowl game you played in 2008. I was like, yeah, of course I do. Got to show my kids one day. And so yet my kids they don't care yet. I don't know if they ever will, but I think they might care one day.
That's right. Because I did play-by-play in college, so I've got all my App State programs, and do I ever look at them? No, but I can't part with them. It's too tough.
I know. There's that there's that organization lady on HGTV that's like, if you touch it, if you pick it up and you feel some type of emotion, then that can stay. If you don't, then it doesn't. The problem is I feel some type of emotion with everything I touch, and so I just am so bad at getting rid of things, but that's why I don't do life alone, and I have a wife, and she helps me. She helps me get over that, so I can actually get rid of stuff.
No, that's exactly it. She's given me a corner of the house, and so I got to keep my stuff there. I just can't let it get into everything else. That's
good.
Yeah. Well, speaking of parenting, so you mentioned I like that word, dadding. That's the season that we're in for sure. So you've got a young one, brand new, 3-month-old. I guess give us an update on is it a her? It's a her.
Yes. Yep. It's a little girl. Her name is Jet. And she was adopted. We adopted her. So she's 3 months old. So we adopted her right when she was born, and she has been just an absolute blessing. I mean, just like regardless, the blessing of life is the blessing of life, and it is unbelievable and a miraculous one. But she has just been such a good fit into our family. It's been amazing. Our son Boston, who's 2.5, is absolutely head over heels obsessed with her. He's obsessed with her, and she'll wake up in the morning and he calls. So we would say that she's what do we say? She's like cutesy wootsy. Oh, cutesy wootsy. So he says like he says it backwards. He says wootsy cutesy. So it's he goes, oh, my little wootsy cutesy, and he gives her a big kiss, and it's just adorable. It's amazing. But it's a whole different situation, right? Because I grew up with a brother, and no girls in the family. I mean, obviously my mom is a girl, but I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on how to raise boys, and did a bunch of reading, and now it's a bunch of reading up on how to raise girls the right way. And it's just and my wife, she grew up in a house where her father was not really a good guy, and he was abusive, and so we don't have an example of a guy raising girls that way either, right? So I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me to raise a girl who's happy and healthy and loving and smart and beautiful and everything like that. But it's also such an awesome opportunity at the same time, right? And I think that a lot of times, I mean, it's with anything in life. When you feel a really big pressure to do something, it also usually is probably one of the biggest and best opportunities that you have. And so that's kind of how I've been looking at it and taking it day by day and just being like, look, what can I do to pour into this little girl so she knows that she is loved? She's loved by me, but I'm a fallible father, but she's loved by the real father as well.
Amen. Gosh, that's awesome, because I love being a girl dad, and I grew up with brothers myself, so it's all new for me, and it's cool how she softened me in so many ways and allowed me to be even just more silly and relaxed, and so I'm loving it. So you're getting into that first few months. First few months are a little tougher, but then you get to really shine as the dad.
Yeah.
Probably, I forget what month that it kind of clicked. I was like, oh man, this is great. You probably experienced that a little bit with your son as well, but
oh yeah, it's like 6 months you feel like, okay, maybe they're responding, but then by 9 months you're like, all right, this now what I'm doing counts. It all counts, but now what I'm doing feels like it counts.
That's right. You get some response and some feedback, and so that helps. Any quick nugget that maybe you have been reading that would be beneficial to dads today, or something that has jumped out to you, a tool or something like that?
Yeah, well, one of the things that and this is more based on my son and raising boys, but you've been reading um, uh, a lot of John Eldridge books lately, and read Wild at Heart, and now I'm reading Fathered by God, and just this idea that like these young boys, like they're wild men, and you just want to tell them no all the time. But a lot of times you gotta let them fall. Like you gotta let them get bumped and bruised, and you gotta let them explore, right? And so I think that that's been one of the toughest challenges during this COVID time, also during the winter, up in the Northeast, is that you got to create things where these boys and girls can just explore, right? There's like this innate sense of exploration that I see from my son, and I have to foster it because it doesn't present itself as easily as it has in other years, right? So I think that's one of the things that I read, and I was like, you know what, I that's a tangible thing that I can really do and really kind of pour into. And then I think the other thing too is how much telling your son and telling your daughter that you love them and that you're proud of them consistently, right? Because sometimes we feel like our actions will speak louder than our words, but with kids, that's not the case. Like with our kids, we got to use words as well, right? And so then when they start understanding them, even before they understand it, we were told when we went through the adoption process, if this is a situation where you want to tell your daughter about her birth parents and that she is adopted, you kind of weave it into her growth just as you would weave the concept of love into the growth of your biological child. So, where we tell our son even before he could even barely open his eyes, I love you, I love you, I love you. It's the same thing, kind of weaving in this, I love you, I'm proud of you, like we chose you, you're our daughter, we love, we love you, and you're ours. And so that's been another process too, just reminding myself daily that my kids see me as this superhero, and I need to pour into them like I am, like I'm someone that they are looking up to, not just the guy who lives in their house that's bigger than them, type of thing.
Man, no, there's so many good nuggets in there, and even thinking about the exploration and just this idea that like we have to give our kids boundaries, and God has given us boundaries as well, but He's also given us so much freedom and so much opportunity, and that we're not so trapped. And sometimes maybe we feel trapped, but we're really not. And but He's given us boundaries because He loves us. And so for
Mhm.
us as parents, yeah, we give our kids boundaries because without boundaries, then it's dangerous. But to not necessarily, hold them back so much, and we're tempted to do that too. No, don't touch that. Don't do that. We don't ever want
Mhm.
to have them experience pain, but pain is part of the deal too, and that's part of the growth. So that's a good that kind of triggered that thought for me. So
Mhm. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And then as far as the adoption goes, anytime we have a guy on who has been through the process of adoption, I love kind of spotlighting it and speaking to it, because I think it's just such a wonderful thing. And God really just shines through adoption. And so I guess just maybe share just an encouraging word of your experience, or even the challenges of the experience, but kind of, yeah, what people need to
Yeah.
know about it.
Yeah, and I think there's a bunch of different reasons, right, why people will go adoption route. Whether it's medical thing, and our situation started out that way. So I'm a cancer survivor, and in college, my senior year of college, I went through radiation chemotherapy treatment for Ewing sarcoma, and was able to beat it. But one of the issues that arose from the medication and from the treatment process was that my sperm count was decreased a lot, right? Like I still have, I remember they, did a test, and, for the guys who have ever had to do one of those tests, it's not the most pleasant experience. However, you give them your sample, and then they called back and they're like, look, good news, we found sperm in the sample. And I said, okay, great. They said, yeah, we found two in the sample. And I said, two? 2,200? And they said, no, two. I said, aren't there usually supposed to be like millions? They said, yes, but we can, take the two and we, save them and whatever. So anyways, for our son, who was our biological son, we went through the IVF process, and it was, just, it was a trying process, but it was also a miraculous process. And then, with our daughter, we didn't want to go back through the IVF process right away. It was during the pandemic. It was a lot of medical issues that were going on around there as well. And so we started praying, and we had this, we felt like God put on our hearts that we wanted to have more kids. And we started praying, like, basically just how, like, God, show us how and why. And he put it on my wife and my heart that, adoption was a part of it. And he did that through, answering our prayers, but also through just guiding us through reading through the Bible. And just, it seemed like every time we would open it up, there was some verse about how, look, we are the adopted kids into, the Father's kingdom, right? Like, we are adopted into his family because he loves us. And there's this really just, biblical acceptance and also biblical encouragement around adoption. And we said, okay, let's start the process. And it was, gosh, man, it's so hard to adopt. I mean, you have to do so many things in order to just be approved, which rightfully so. You want to
bad.
you want to prove that, you are a family that is capable of adopting because you're being entrusted with a child. And so anyways, we got matched with a birth mother, and just really pleasant experience. We went down to Texas to pick up our baby girl when the mom went into labor, and we were there in the hospital through the entire thing. And
wow.
So it was beautiful. And I think one of the most beautiful parts about it is that we have a really good relationship with the birth mom and the birth father. And that's obviously just, a blessing from God, because that's not always how it goes. And, we get, I mean, it's unbelievable. And they're young, and they're just beautiful, beautiful people. And we're doing Bible studies with them. It's just incredible, man, the way it's all worked out. So,
wow.
They're on their path, to finding God. They're both kind of young Christians, and we're just excited. And we can't take that honor, any more strongly than we do, right? Of raising, their baby, and being their parents. So we're so blessed to be able to have had that experience and to continue that experience, and to know that, look, this is a little girl who, gosh, man, we're her parents, right? But she's a daughter of God, and she's our daughter. So it's such a wonderful reminder every day when she wakes up and smiles and stretches and looks into our eyes, and when she cries, whatever it is that, like, man, like, we wanted you so bad, we chose you, we prayed for you, God put you in our home.
Amen. Gosh, what an incredible story. And I appreciate you sharing that. And man, I love hearing about it all, because I've got the adoption throughout my family, and it's just a wonderful gift and blessing. And more and more people, I think, need to pray through it and be open to how God wants to use them in different ways throughout that process. And I think even you mentioning ministering to the parents that gave their child as a gift. Can't forget about them either. They're part of the whole process. So that's awesome, man. Well, gosh, we've gone this far into the show. We haven't really talked sports, and that's okay, because I know I'm encouraged, and I know our listeners are as well. And that's all important stuff. So I appreciate you sharing about all those different topics. And so while we do have you, I guess we'll wrap up with some little sports talk. But you're wearing your Giants shirt today, so we'll start in the NFL. What maybe quarterback scenario are you most intrigued by? Are you following the closest?
Oh man, that's a really good question, because how about this offseason? Like, this is the most quarterback heavy transactional offseason that I remember seeing in forever. I mean, it's awesome, right? But it's also so strenuous for, I'm sure, these organizations and for these players. Probably less so for the players, because they know they're going to get paid and have a good opportunity somewhere. But these organizations trying to figure out what to do, like who to take. And I really, so there's a couple. I'd say out of the draft, I just, I think everybody is. I'm really excited to see what Trevor Lawrence can do in the NFL. He's proven himself on the college fields, by far, but just really interested to see what he does. And all systems go. He goes to Jacksonville, and he is the face of that franchise. And it's just going to be really interesting to see how that goes. And I think it's going to go well for him. I think in terms of transactional, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, when Carson Wentz going to Chicago. It just, is he a good fit there? Like, or Indy. Sorry, Indy. He goes to Indy. Like, is he a good fit there? Like, how's it go? Is he able to redeem himself, after this past season? That's going to be really interesting. And it's funny because you hope for all these guys. It's not like you're saying, oh man, are they going to blow it? But you just hope they do well. And then obviously the biggest one is Deshaun Watson. I mean, I don't think anyone saw the turmoil that Houston was going to experience before the season. And now it's like, it seems like it's toxic. Like, no one wants to go there. No one wants to be there. However, it's a huge task for the front office in Houston because they're new. They got to get rid of that stigma, and they got to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with football? Or are we going to trade Deshaun? I mean, it's such a crazy thing that we are not used to seeing in the NFL. That it's exciting.
It is. I'm a Panthers fan, so rooting hard for Deshaun to come here. And kind of the big debate is, how much do you give up? How much is it worth going to trade for a quarterback? And so you're a defensive guy. We just saw the Bucs and their incredible defense, help them win that Super Bowl. So where do you come out on kind of how many picks can you give up and how worth it is selling the farm, so to speak, to go get a quarterback?
It's worth it. This is from a linebacker who's just, my job was to look in the eyes of the quarterback basically and defend him. And you could tell, when you looked across the line of scrimmage and you saw Tom Brady and you just saw the confidence. You saw him scanning the defense and being like, okay, I'm going to adjust the play so that this works for us. I understand what they're doing. He's watched just as much film as us. And there was always times where he would check, and then I would check, and then he would check, and then I would check. Right? And there was this mental chess match. And then there was other times when you look across the line of scrimmage, and you see nothing behind the eyes. You're like, this guy might be a good talent, but I don't see in his eyes any sort of confidence, or doesn't present any sort of fear for me. So it just goes to show what a really, really good quarterback means. I mean, and this is a guy who's going to hold the ball, touch the ball every single play. And we all know that the ball is the most important thing in the game of football. And so when you have a guy who is very, very good, who is willing to take coaching, who is able to coach on his own, that's a guy that you trade everything for, and you get him because although it's great to build an offensive line around a left tackle, you don't build a team around a left tackle. You build a team around a quarterback. And so you need to have a quarterback. You got to get him. Your team always has a chance when you have a phenomenal quarterback. And when you don't have a good quarterback, your team never has a chance.
Amen. I'm right there with you. Had a big debate on our podcast yesterday about it, but I'm saying, hey, if you're Panthers, go do it, whatever it takes to get them. So it'll be fascinating. I can't wait to see these next few weeks. It's kind of the lull period right now in the off season, even though we did have the Carson Wentz news last week, but I think it'll start picking up here in the next month or so. So leading up to the draft. So a lot of excitement as sports fans, but Mark, man, thanks for sharing your heart and the good, the bad, and stuff going on in life. And man, it's great catching up and always love having you on Unpacking It. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to come on and just share life with you guys. Appreciate it.
That's it. Absolutely, man. Well, enjoy the books you got in your library as well. And we'll hopefully catch up with Mark again soon right here on Unpacking It.